We are going to have a rolling 5-minute 9.0 plus earthquake. This is something that scientists do not argue about, and it's something that is coming. But the new info that we have got is absolutely scary. I have covered this since the start of my channel, and the reason why is I live on one of these little dots here. I am near Seattle, which is not going to be hit as hard by the tsunami, but we are going to have a rolling 5-minute 9.0 plus earthquake. This is something that scientists do not argue about, and it's something that is coming. But the new info that we have got is absolutely scary. So here's the thing. I know someone who is a liaison between the military and FEMA. This person told me they thought it was going to happen 2 years ago. The thing is the military has new technology that knows what is about to happen. And with everything, all of the military in our group, everybody that's been calling in, they have confirmed this. Everybody who knows anybody in the military, they are doing something to prepare. And what was funny is when I interviewed a bunch of people the other day, it seems like now it's 3 Navy folks don't know anything about it, stationed here. So I thought that was very odd. In fact, I'm going to be posting that interview tonight. This woman is in the Navy, lives here, and has not even heard the word Cascadia before, nor did she even know that we were due for a 9.0, and she was actually showing her friend around Seattle at the time. She's been here 6 years, and not one word has she heard. So if you remember the striking images of Japan with the ships rolling into the streets and the waves going over the city, people on 8-story rooftops clinging for life onto antennas and things like this. In fact, I believe that's how the mayor of one town survived and half of the people that were with him didn't. That is something that is incredibly burnt into our heads for the rest of our lives. We will see those images. Everybody knows kind of where they were when they were seeing it, and it was something that was shocking to us all. Nobody's seen something like that in modern history. Well, this is going to be 50,000 times bigger. We're talking about 10 million plus homes, people out of their homes. And check this out. You would think, since it's only going to affect Washington, Oregon, and California, because this is an almost 800-mile long basically plate meeting. It's called the Cascadia Subduction Zone because it is actually the Juan de Fuca and the North American plate are stacked on top of each other. So this is actually going to be a 9.0. If we have a full margin rupture, it's actually going to go from Vancouver, Canada, all the way down to the beginning of California. So you'd think, only 3 states are preparing. Well, apparently they know this is going to be bigger than that. 21 of all of the West states are preparing in one way or another to handle when this happens. And they believe it's going to happen sooner than later. One of the gentlemen that I just talked to, very, very, very reliable source, said that the West Coast is going to be unrecognizable. He said the movies don't even do it justice. So what they are preparing for is bigger than all of us know. This is huge. In fact, Russian scientists recently made the news because they were saying, they are predicting that we're about to have this thing. People go either way on that. They say, they're saying that because they've threatened before that they actually have devices that can cause 30 to 90 meter waves with nuclear devices that they can set off in the ocean. But as far as this, it's going to snap and it's going to displace water for 3 whole states all along the West Coast, and then it's going to send that wall of water towards us. So all of the coastline cities in Oregon especially are going to be completely wiped off the map. So with their FEMA's estimate is 15,000 deaths here, give or take, which is completely and utterly wrong. Japan had about 15,000 deaths, and it was one of the most prepared places on Earth for an earthquake. In fact, almost every single building there was set up and built for an 8.5 earthquake, which, by the way, they built up to 8.5 because the 9.0 in Japan was never supposed to happen. Scientists did not know that that even could happen. So it's kind of crazy considering that was something they said couldn't happen. And then this one is something that they found less than 20 years ago. It's an absolutely terrifying thought, and it is 100% fact. Now, we've had people calling in saying their experiences with the military and saying, yeah, my whole career in the military, it's been normal drills. But the last 2 years, let alone the last year, it's been nonstop Cascadia subduction zone drills. Even when I talked to Chris Goldfinger, which you might recognize the name, he was the subject of the really big one article by the New Yorker, which made it go viral and blew up the subject. And so he was his own TED Talk, of course, on the subject as well. He said he has seen where he was sitting on the Oregon coastline and an aircraft carrier was right off the water, and they had actual Navy drop ships coming into the bay and dropping off ambulances as part of a drill. And it wasn't Cascadia Rising, which, by the way, it was over 300,000 emergency workers, police, military, all these different people coming together to drill for this. This was an unpublished drill, which they are doing all the time. And now the military is actually practicing to fight in the dark. They are practicing to fight in tunnels. They're practicing to do all this kind of stuff. Basically fight with no power. Now, if this earthquake hits the West Coast, and what they think very soon, it's going to knock out grids. There's going to be no power on the entire West Coast. And people think that if they're inland, that they're going to be fine. It's not like that. This is an earthquake that you will be able to feel 3,000 miles away. People in New York might feel a tremor from this. They say 2,000 miles away, you will feel it. In fact, it will register on the Richter scales almost all the way across the states. So this is going to be something massive. And of course, people just kind of brush it under the rug and say, whatever. They've seen articles that say there's a 20% chance in the next 50 years. That's not what the military thinks. The military is preparing right now to save whatever they can. And they are doing weird things. Like the people that are in the know, it's crazy to me that somebody who is in the Navy, active, has been in the Navy for 2 years, has lived here for 6 years, has absolutely no idea what Cascadia subduction zone is. Not only not the word, because the word's long, maybe they didn't know the name. In fact, through these interviews, I've realized nobody knows what Cascadia subduction zone is, but some of them know, the big one. And then the 90% portion of people say, the big one, you mean San Andreas. Because they've been conditioned their whole life. Everybody talks about the big one, about San Andreas. This is bigger than San Andreas. This is much bigger. The capacity of San Andreas doesn't even come shy of where the Cascadia subduction zone starts. And Chris Goldfinger said in our interview, which if you've seen that, that 20 years ago, to the question I asked, by the way, the question I asked is, can the Cascadia subduction zone trigger other earthquakes like San Andreas, or could it actually trigger Yellowstone? And he said, 20 years ago, I would have said no, and the rest of the community would have said no. But now we know for a fact that one earthquake can trigger another. So they know this. In fact, all of the sciences around earthquake is completely changing. It's probably not changing. What's happening is they're probably releasing some of the secrets they've known for a while. The thing is if you knew a big earthquake like this was going to happen, would you move to a place? Would you bring your money to that place? Would you buy property at that place? Probably not. And if you knew that place was going to be absolutely, utterly destroyed, again, would you set up shop? Would you start a business? Would you keep the economy going? Or would you ditch the entire West Coast? See, the thing is you can have earthquake insurance, you can have all this on this, but like people have said to me, like, what are you still doing there? You can be as prepped as you want, but who knows how bad this is going to be. And you're not going to be able to get out of main cities. You're going to have to go on the main roads. All of the freeway, everything is going to be just completely stopped. There isn't going to be a freeway. You might as well walk 5 miles a day and get ready for a very, very long walk. In fact, Arizona is preparing for a mass migration of people from California from this event. They're specifically preparing for people to be walking in thousands and thousands towards their state. That's how crazy this is. This is bigger than people know. You think that they're going to come in and swoop everybody up with helicopters. They don't have the resources for what's going to happen. So I just got to get that through everybody's head. Again, this is something that the scientific community, the government, the military, there's not one community that says this is not going to happen. Nobody's arguing. With other ones, there's all these debates and, oh, well, this could be, well, by looking at this, it might now. It's not like that. With Cascadia Subduction Zone, it happens every 240 years on average. And the last one was in 1700. We are at 2019, which brings us to 319 years, almost 80 years overdue. This is something serious, and if you have family in the Northwest, that's one thing. But even if you live in the Midwest, this will affect you. It will affect our entire country, and it could knock out the grid in half of it. So I would definitely be getting your simple supplies ready. If you're in the Midwest, you have no idea. If 10 million people are without homes, there's not going to be shelter set up, tents, whatever else. Think about how badly Katrina was handled. Think about how badly some of these other disasters were handled. And then think about the largest disaster that the U.S. has ever been in. That's what this is going to be. And of course, people say, oh, well, I know about it. There's nothing more to know about. There's plenty of things. Military are saying that the West Coast is going to be unrecognizable. The military is literally, they know by scientific terms, and they have tools that we're not even allowed to know about, that know that we're not only locked and it's doing these slow slips, but it's like a glass of water on the edge of a roller coaster, and any second it's going to fall off. So I hope people pay attention to this, especially in the West Coast. Doesn't matter if you are all the way down by Mexico and California, you should be ready for anything. If you are in Arizona, if you're in Idaho or Montana or any of these states next to it, 21 states are preparing for an earthquake that's supposedly only going to affect 3. It doesn't make too much sense, does it? Now, we have a huge group of people that are forming, including our over 4,000 in Discord, that are actually meeting up in all the states. So we do have state-by-state groups prepping and preparing together. People ask, what are we preparing for? There's a bigger list than 21 of things that you should, consider, but not worry about. It's the whole point of preparing or insuring yourself is to make yourself basically prepared for anything. In the event it happens, you will be least affected. The thing is you can't control what happens. Even insurance has the act of God category. There's just things you don't control. You could be walking across the street and die. That's something you can't control. You can't control somebody else driving 90 and blindsiding you. But what you can control is logical. The thing is say, you lose power for an entire month, or what DHS is actually suggesting you prepare for 6 months to a year. Say the entire country loses power. There's more than just food and water that you need. There's probably self-protection and all sorts of other things on that list. So, mind you, it is only logical if you get insurance on your electronics, insurance on your wedding ring, insurance on your house, insurance on your car. Why don't you have insurance on your body? Have supplies, food, water, those kind of things. If you put it in that kind of way, people won't consider you so nuts. Because normally people think that preppers are nuts and out there and think it's the end of the world tomorrow. That's not the fact. That's a possibility, but it's not a fact.